Hi guys, how are you doing? I hope you're all doing lots of work at home and keeping yourselves nice and active. Keep those levels up and do as much work as you can. Remember, you can ask any of your teachers for help, and if you can't get through to them, email me and I'll get through to them for you. Okay, we're going to look at lesson 4 now. There's no need looking at lesson 3. It was fairly straightforward. All you had to do was to look at that, watch that video, and then answer these questions. The only thing I think maybe you need a little bit of help with would be the green questions, which were the harder, higher levels. So what I'm asking you to do is to link to your knowledge of Christianity and Islam, link into your knowledge of the teachings of both Jesus and Muhammad, and see how that contrasts. So the first one, if you were asked or if you were required to go on a holy war, how does that contrast with what Christians believe? How does that contrast with the golden rule of Christianity, for instance, or love thy neighbour, or the teachings of Jesus, which teaches tolerance, respect, understanding? How does that fit? How does that contrast? Why is it such an issue? And you should be thinking this all the way through this unit of work. For both religions, how could they justify going on a war, because we all know what war entails. And then the other higher level question then in lesson 3 was, what do they both have in common? We've done this over and over again. I just keep coming back to this because you need to keep that at the forefront of your mind, because you need to be asking you one question really. If they have so much in common, if both religions would believe in tolerance and respect and peace, why then would they go to war? How can they justify that? Okay, so hopefully you've got that, and then the rest should be fairly straightforward. So going on to lesson 4 then, and this is what I'm going to be expecting you to do. You're going to answer the questions about the Pope's promises, which are on the screen. Then you're going to make a table in your books, or however you want to, of evidence from the speech. So we're taking evidence from the source, which is the speech, and you're going to put it in those tables. We've done similar things in class, so you should be able to manage this. Create a source analysis. A little bit harder this one, so which is why I was really hoping you guys would wait for me to do the video before you did lesson 4. Then we're going to write a paragraph, and then you're going to make a list of reasons, so you're recapping at the end. So I would expect all of these then. So you can see this one's a little bit longer, might take you a little bit more time than some of the others so far. So let's have a look then. I've got a thinking head on here, and I've got a watching. So you could now pause in a moment, and you can watch that video that's on the slides. So hopefully you watched that video, or another one that you saw on YouTube, as long as we're talking about Pope Urban II and his speech to encourage Christians to go on the crusade. That should have given you a little bit of an insight, but let's just break it down a little bit. Okay, so in 1096, we know medieval period, he encouraged Christians to fight Muslims and to gain back Jerusalem. Remember from previous lessons that Jerusalem was the centre of the world for the 3 religions that we're talking about, but these 2 in particular. Pope Urban told them that they would go to heaven even if they died in battle, and they would be allowed to keep any land they gained in battle. So straight away you can see some contrasting ideas really. You're going to encourage different types of people. Which people do you think would be more encouraged for this one? Which one do you think would be more encouraged for this one? So straight away you should start to think of the reasons why people would join this crusade. We also try and link back to what we've done in class about Pope Urban. What do we know about the church in medieval times, and what do we know about the Pope? Okay, in terms of power, going back to that idea, people would have wanted to have done what Pope Urban II had asked them to, due to their faith, due to their belief. Go back to the doom paintings, heaven and hell, and everything else that we've covered. Now, what I want you to think about really is, what are the problems with some of these promises? So we're going to break down the promises in a minute, But have a think about just the ones you know about, first of all. So the idea of money, the idea of going to heaven, the idea of devotion to God. What are the problems with these? Do you think he would have really known that that would happen to the Christians? Do you think it might encourage the wrong kind of people or for the wrong reasons? So ask yourself this question throughout this whole lesson today. What were the problems with what Pope Urban had said and promised? So moving on slightly then. This was the speech as a breakdown. Now you obviously could look maybe closer at your computer. I don't know if you'll see it from here, but I shall read some of the things for you, just make sure we know some of the words. So, brothers, I speak as a messenger from God. So the Christians would believe that Pope Urban II had spoken to or through God. Okay, so God is speaking through him. So whatever he is saying comes directly from God. And remember, this is medieval Britain, so people would have believed this. Your fellow Christians in the East desperately need your help. Look at the language there. Your personal pronoun. By saying your, he is making the audience believe that it is something to do with them, just like in speech writing. Fellow Christians. If they're fellows, they're part of you, they're part of your group, they're part of your gang. So fellow Christians, the people who are with you in the East, desperately need help. That word desperately is high emotion, isn't it? So think back to how reliable this source is if that language is very emotional. The Saracens, in our key vocabulary, Saracens was the medieval term for Muslims, have attacked them and have pushed deep into Christian land. So straight away we've got that emotive word there, attacking, that idea that the Muslims have done this to Christians. So it's not just two people arguing about land, one has attacked the other and pushed deep into Christian land. So that idea that that land belongs to the Christian and the Muslims are taking that land. So straight away, the people listening to this are going to think that the Muslims are in the wrong. They are killing great numbers of Christians. So again, we've got this emotional language, killing great numbers. So straight away, if we're thinking about our fellow Christians, our brothers, our brethren, that is going to encourage Christians to want to join the fight, join the crusade. They are destroying churches and land. In the name of God, I beg you all to drive out these foul creatures. So we know churches are sacred to Christians. We know that that is described as God's house, God's home. So the fact they are destroying means they are attacking the religion themselves. They are attacking God, okay, because they're destroying the churches. The land comes after and loses a little bit of emotion when you read it. It would have been the churches that would have made people stand up. And in the name of God, I beg you all. So because God is speaking through Pope Urban, Christians would have believed that you need to do it in the name of God. So he's almost starting to give permission from God to do those things against the Muslims, to go and fight against them, the things that contrast to Christian beliefs. I beg you all to drive out these foul creatures. Beg, okay, is an emotive word, but look at that word there, foul creatures. By calling them creatures, by calling Muslims creatures, then suddenly we disconnect from the idea that Muslims are just other humans with different beliefs. So that would make people a bit more willing to be able to hurt them or to harm them. It also gives them a little bit of a get-out clause in terms of love thy neighbour, respect. If they're creatures, they are now not humans. He carries on. Your own land has too many people. So in other words, it was becoming overpopulated in Britain at the time. There is not much wealth here, so we are overpopulated and we're poor. So straight away, he's talking to the people and he's starting to allocate some blame or some reason that their life might be better. The soil hardly grows enough to support you. Set out for Jerusalem. Take that land from the wicked infidel and make it your own. So in other words, they're saying, life isn't great here in Britain, but actually what you can do if you go to Jerusalem and you take back the Christian land that the Muslims have taken from the Christians, then you can make that your own. You will have a life where there isn't too many people and you're going to be more wealthy. So people thought that they believed that they were going to have a better life for this. And then we've got wicked infidel. If you remember our keywords, infidel is somebody who doesn't believe in Christianity. And wicked, again, foul, wicked creatures. This is dehumanizing the Muslims so that they were able to then go and attack them. Okay, carrying on. You can pause this at any time if you want to stop and rewind. If you die on the journey, so obviously battle, people are going to die, especially in medieval times. That would be one of the reasons why someone might say, I'm not going to fight because I don't want to die. However, he's addressing those issues. So he's addressing the Christians who are devout faith, who have believers. He's addressing the people who are poor, who haven't got what they need. And now he's addressing the people who don't really want to die. If you die on the journey, or if you were killed in battle against the Saracens, the Muslims, all your sins will be forgiven at once. God himself has given me the power to tell you this. Really powerful paragraph, that one. Okay, your sins will be forgiven at once. Think about what we know about the doom paintings. What did the Christians believe would actually happen to them if they died while they had their sins and had not been forgiven for those sins? Think about what those 7 sins we looked at, greed and sloth and all of those in previous lessons. But this is really powerful. God himself, capital H, has given me the power to tell you this. So the Christians would believe again that this is all coming from God. It's coming through Pope Urban II by God himself. Some of you have spent too much time fighting against your fellow Christians, but now you must fight the Saracens. Let bandits become soldiers. So that word bandit was somebody who was unlawful, who wouldn't worry maybe about sin or who would commit crimes. So they want those kind of people. And so what does this suggest to you? All the way through this, there are words you can pick out that should be telling you the type of person Pope Urban II was, or the type of people who were going to be listening to this speech and then joining the battle. But now you must fight the Pharaohs. Let bandits become soldiers. Soldiers who have been fighting for money must now fight for heavenly riches. So even if you've got money, now you fight for the riches that you're going to find in heaven, okay, which is that ultimate goal for a Christian. So all the way through this speech, you should have picked out different people who maybe who would have joined the Crusades and why they would have joined the Crusades, because they were probably going to die, if not on the journey, because it was a long journey, we're talking about medieval times, or in the actual battle. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do now. Okay, on this page here, you have got a table. There should be a pen. Apologies, I've missed out the pen. I want you to create this this height table, but in any way you want to. And I want you to literally pick the evidence from the speech. So you're going to bullet point, where in the speech do these things come in? Where is there evidence for these things? Okay, so we can have a little go together, just picking out a few things. I don't want to give you all the answers. Okay, so if we have a look here, let's have a look at the speech. The first thing is to obey God. So where in there might you find evidence that the Christians would like to obey God? So when we read through, it might be that he's a messenger. It might be he's giving them the power. It might be in the name of God. So where in there do you find that? Literally take the words out, put them in your table. Revenge. Where is it against Muslims or Saracens? Where is Pope Urban II saying the Muslims are doing something against the Christians or against the world. And then where can that fit? Land, where does it make reference to land? Where does it make reference to forgiveness? So we know how important it was for a Christian in medieval times to want to go to heaven. So where in here does it talk about that? And then where is it just about the love of war? Where do people want to fight, want to get money, want to get riches? Okay, so you're going to split that up for me. And then there's a question at the bottom for you to think about. You're thinking hard. Is there anything that links all of these courses together? So is there anything here that you might link 2 together, 3, or maybe all of them? How do they link? How would maybe, rather than just one thing, someone might be attracted to more than one thing? Because if you can get into the head of a medieval person, a medieval Christian, you then will be able to understand why they battled. So you can start to answer those questions as to why would a Christian then be willing to kill somebody. Okay, then it's your big task. So this should take you quite a long time. If we were in class, I would have this on an A3 sheet, and I would probably give you a whole 50-minute lesson to do this after the initial input. So I'd be expecting you to put quite a lot of work into this. In here, I put the speech for you again, and then I'm going to ask you to tell me what's the source about, who said it, who were they, why were they so important to Christians, what reason does the source give for going on a crusade. So again, a bit like the page you've just done, that should have been in notes. Now you would be putting this in more detail, and you need to be saying why. I need to be seeing conjunctions. Don't forget your conjunctions just because I'm not there to hassle you about them. Okay, so here you should be saying why, and tell me what would be the result of that, what would be the consequence of those things. Okay, so that's what I'd expect from you here. Then on the slides, there's a little bit of help for you. And remember what I said, if you download rather than looking in your Google Drive, there are some extra help in the notes panel. Okay. Okay, you should have paused that video then in order to complete this. Hopefully you've done that now before you look at the next slides. So in the next slides, we've just got a looking sign, and we're just going to break down some of the reasons why in bullet points. You should already have these. If there's anything missing, you can go back and add these. You could create a poster for these if you want to remember them. They are really important to this unit of work, especially when we start comparing and contrasting. Then on the next slide, okay, I've given you a little bit more as to, in terms of your flight path, where do you see yourself and what am I looking for specifically for you. So if you're on a flight path 4, I want you to be able to give your own opinion and describe 1 or 2 reasons why people went on a crusade. I'm going to ask you the most important, but within that you should be giving me lots more knowledge. Flight path 5, you should have several reasons, okay, and including those examples. You should be able to do that. PEE, we can all do those basic ones. Then your flight path 6, we're moving on to explaining now. So we've got point with a bit of description, we've got point evidence with a basic explain. Now we're developing that explain like we've been doing in class, okay? We need to evaluate, we need to give examples, and we use the sources. You've got that source there, you've broken it down into your table, you've done the whole big sheet as well. You should know instantly what is in that speech you could use to back up your answer, okay? And then the higher people, you need to really be using those sources, maybe using other sources you know, other things, linking in other things you know about Christianity, and really developing that explain. So here's your question. This is going to take you quite a while. So we've got the pen sign there for you. This is the question. The most important reason people joined a crusade was so they could fight for God. What do you think the main reason is? So, like we would have done in class, you need to answer this. This is an essay-based style question. At very least, you would have a detailed PEE answer. But ideally, especially for those of you here, where you're doing some reasons, you want to have at least 2 or 3 paragraphs with a different reason for each one. Having your main reason first, Then you could have your however or your contrast or your additional one there, and then you can sum it all up. So ideally, I'm looking for an essay style question. Please, if you want to, if you've typed it up, email it to me. I can mark it, send it back, take a picture, and then I can give you some feedback on that piece of written work then. Then I can know how much help I need to give you in terms of your writing tasks. So if you pause that now, you can work through that essay and making sure, like I say, you need to be having at least one detailed PEE, which would give you between a flight path 4 and 5. If you're working higher, I'd expect more from you. You can pause here, but I'm going to carry on the video. And then at the end, I've got a simple question that just wants you to think about a quote. This is not a quote from medieval times, but it's how you link all your knowledge in. So here's the quote: "Religion isn't the cause of wars, it's the excuse." And this is by Jasper Ford. Okay, what I want you to do is, I don't want you to write an answer on this unless you want to, that's fine. I never stop you writing, but I just want you to maybe annotate it, make a list. What could you talk about? If I gave you this as an essay, what points could you bring in? What could you talk about in modern time? What could you talk about in medieval time? What could you talk about in Roman time? All of which we've worked in depth and we've talked about. So this sheet here is just a little bit of an annotation just to start you linking. Okay, so just to end then, this is what I would have expected from your whole of lesson 4. I wanted you to answer the questions about the Pope's promises, make a table, create that source analysis, write a paragraph or 2 or 3 if you're pushing higher levels, and then I want you to make a list of a reason why somebody would go on a crusade, or answer that quote if you want to go a little bit higher. So I hope that helps. It starts to get a little bit more harder, the work now, because rather than just finding out when and where things are, we're starting to analyse the Crusades. We're going to start to look in. So try not to go too far ahead. I try and get the videos up to date and ahead of you. Anyway, I hope you all stay nice and safe, and I hope you're all doing okay. Speak to you soon. Bye.